Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Black heart, black mind, black in. Again, hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Let me help you all out with something right quick. On my 9th day here in the country in which I was born and raised, I have learned something new, and that is that your memory is longer than what I gave it credit for. I was under the impression that maybe your memories were, the average American memory was shorter than it was 7 years ago. But when I got back here, I realized that local news is still covering the riots at the Capitol. And that was over half a year ago. And I was glad to see that. The first sentence has been handed down, and it is a very lenient sentence. And this proves the point that I was making earlier. And the point I was making earlier is that you got to repatriate. We're not going to get equal treatment in the United States. And it would take violence, but even then that wouldn't work. So it ain't going to happen. You ain't going to stay here and we collectively get equal treatment to the majority population. Now, if this is the case, and we know that it is, how do you think that you could convince anybody to give you equal treatment compared to what they give to the Chinese and the Koreans? You see, many of us like to blame ourselves and say, well, if we had our stuff together like so-and-so, then we could get the same things that they have. No, stop with that. I'm sick and tired of hearing you Jungle Bunny say this. It's our fault that we get treated this way. No, it's our fault when we treat each other this way. They don't need an excuse. You can't stay here and get the same treatment because they're not capable of giving it. You got a better shot in the Middle East, honestly, being treated like everybody else. You got a better shot. I've lived in both. I can tell you that. The other thing I want you to understand is, and y'all need to stop talking about this a particular way, that is that y'all need to understand that the Asians don't have a hate crime protection bill because they're doing something better than we are. They're not. They're not even the same community. I've told you this before. They have, and they don't even necessarily have more power per se. Most of their power is in the lower melanin count. And the fact that their hair ain't nappy. That's what that comes down to. And the fact that most of the numbers, which are Chinese and Korean, are happy to look down on us. That's why they got the protection they got. That's it. There was a time when they were so downtrodden that in the South, their men married our women. That's real. They were downtrodden. They weren't considered better than us. And now they got a protection bill that we ain't never gonna get. And what's the reason? You think it's because they're doing something better. You keep on thinking that there's some sort of fairness and justice in the system, and there isn't. If they were as dark as us, if their hair was as nappy, they already got the nose and lips sometimes. If they were as dark as us, with hair as nappy as ours, and they weren't willing to crap on us, they would have never gotten it no matter what they did. End of story. You want to see an Indian really go through bad treatment? It's real simple. Change his name to something more ethnic and put an afro wig on his head, and he will be treated vastly differently. It's not the way he dresses. People love to say that. That's not what it is. Make his hair nappy and change his name to something more ethnic. They can catch it when we're not in the room. Believe you me, when we ain't around, they are the N-words. But when we're there, we go back to being the N-words, and this is why it is that other groups can get what we can't. Every time another group that's not us has moved up financially and socially in this hierarchy that is America and really that is the West. It coincides with them looking down on us. Before the 1960s, Asians were vilified in America. End of story. In the 1960s, we began to protest, and we even rioted sometimes. They didn't. They moved up. That's when they became the model minority. That's all there is to it. It's really nothing else. Indians came into the country in larger numbers, late 60s, early 70s. That's when they began. Guess what? They made it very plain and very clear. They don't sympathize with us. We're the N-words. We're untouchables in their country. And really, people that were light-skinned in their country could be untouchables. In the North, they made it very plain. Ain't no cooperation, none of that. What happened? They moved up. And actually, they went to the United States. They came here with something. They weren't coming to the United States when they were poor, because the poor ones didn't get the visas at the embassies and consulates. It was the physicians, some engineers. That's it. I want y'all to keep this in mind. I've told you multiple times before, and I still hear some of you in the manosphere talking about other groups do this, that, and the other. Well, you can learn from them, but you can't sit up here and keep acting like, well, you're going to get what you want if you do what they do. No, you're not. You think the Asians got a better position in America because they make their kids do homework more hours a day than us? No. Do we need to change our ideas about academics? Absolutely. MOT's right about that. Now, the ones with whom he's beefing, I'm not sure that they have the opposite opinion regarding that. I haven't heard the evidence that they're pro-idness in the culture war, so to speak. I haven't heard it yet. Maybe they are, but I haven't heard it. What I am going to say, though, is that it ain't about the hours they spend doing homework. That's not it, because all of them ain't rich. They project that, but I've been to Malaysia where the Chinese are the business class. I saw that when you go into poor neighborhoods, you got a lot of poor Chinese families too. They fronting. That's what's going on. And they decorate their apartments so that you can tell this is a Chinese apartment from the outside, trying to set themselves apart from the rest of the poor that are Malay. They're trying that, but I'm telling you, they ain't all got their stuff together. It's not possible for a majority of a population to all have their stuff together. You want to see the trifling Chinese? Go back to China. That's where they at. They stuck there for the most part. You want to see the trifling Indian? There's a nation full of them. The nation's called India. And you keep sitting there thinking that you can just emulate these other groups and get the same results. You can emulate them for your internal benefit. You're not going to be treated better externally if you do it. Stop thinking that. You're just not. You can learn Hindi fluently and bob your head like them. And force your kids into engineering, STEM, any subject that most people don't like. You could do all of that. You'd be wasting your breath and wasting your effort, wasting a lot of time and energy if you think it's going to lead to a better treatment from the outside coming in. It's not. It never will. And if you force your students or your kids into a subject that they absolutely hate and abhor, they ain't going to succeed. And probably wind up committing suicide. Now stop and think about that. I mean, as it is, a lot of Asian males are unhappy because after they've done all of what their parents said to do, guess what's out there waiting on them? Nobody. So they got to go into they got to study these subjects they absolutely hate, major in them, focus on them, concentrate on the ones they hate the most, spend the most time on the subjects they hate the most, thinking that this is the key to success, only to maybe financially succeed, maybe not, and in any case, find that the most they can hope for is to be used financially. Nothing else. Because don't nobody want them. The white woman, the black woman, and Asian woman don't want them. And they weren't told that this is what's going to happen. They weren't told that this is what was waiting on them and that there was actually nothing better than this waiting on them the whole time. Nobody had the decency to explain to them that they were actually going to be the least desired males, period. No one prepared them for this. And they're not in an enviable position. And now you want to sit up here and say that as black people, we need to do that. We need to emulate them. And I'm telling you, whether you want to believe this or not, I'm telling you that being privy to listen to some of the things that these other groups of people say, I'm telling you, they're not capable of turning around and extending to you or even allowing you to accumulate on your own these same benefits that they've sat back and not only watched but allowed and even handed to these other groups. They can't do it. This really is skin deep. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum. And black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it. And black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.